two.
Okay, I want you to listen up. Here's the drill. President Biden is in trouble politically. He's polling right up there with fungal infections. Part of the reason for that is that he gave in to the loon wing of his party, and he dissolved the southern border. Now, 5 months before an election, he has to appear to be willing to do something about it, hence this executive order. And he expects you to report this epiphany that he has had, take what the White House is telling you, balance it on your noses like trained seals, and report it uncritically. For 3 years, we have watched President Biden push on a door that has been clearly marked for. He's mismanaged Congress, COVID, the national debt, the economy, inflation, crime, Afghanistan, Iran, the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine, and now, of course, the border. And every time, I think the president has hit rock bottom. He has managed to find a shovel and continue to dig. Hence, this executive order. And I think that's what the American people see. The first question I would ask President Biden is this. It's a little late, isn't it, Mr. President? It's a little late. You can't make this cat walk backwards. The president's border policies have allowed 8 million people to come into our country illegally. If you try to come into our country today illegally, you are a sucker. You are a sucker. All you have to do is present yourself at the southern border. Now, for 3 years, President Biden told us all, there is no crisis at the southern border, for reasons clearly stated on the teleprompter. And his plan to deal with the crisis at the border was to pretend that there wasn't a crisis at the border. Some of you reported that. Some of you didn't. Well, when the American people figured it out, because they may be poorer under President Biden, but they're not stupid, the Biden administration shifted its strategy. It then said, well, we know there's a crisis at the border, but we don't have any authority to fix it. That didn't work either, because the American people aren't cell deep stupid. So now he has decided to tell you that he has been born again. He has had an epiphany. He is now a border hawk. And that's what he wants you to report. Look, you can cut the hypocrisy with a knife. You know, I have seen the good side of politics, but I've also seen the dark side. I spent 25 years in the major leagues of Louisiana politics before I was sent down to the minors here in Washington. I have seen the good side, but I've seen the dark side. And this is one of the most cynical things that I have ever seen a politician attempt to do 5 months before an election. It is insulting. It is cheap. It is contemptuous. And the American people see that. And I hope you do too.
Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to the Douglas Ducote Show. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. That was the great senator from Louisiana, Senator Kennedy, I love the way he uses words. And he just thinks up this stuff off the top of his head as he's going. He doesn't use a teleprompter. I wish I had that kind of wit when I was looking for the right words to say sometimes. Anyhow, for those of you that have been watching my show for a few years now, after watching Kennedy speak, you know what I'm about to say. I told you that the only chance in hell that Joe Biden would have of being reelected is if he took the border crisis seriously and did something about it. And in doing so, the left and the Democrats called me a conspiracy theorist, said that I was making up bull BS about the border, said that my documentaries when I went to the border weren't true. They said that they would rather believe what Biden tells them and what the Homeland Security clown tells them, which is that there's no problem on the border. It's secure. Well, who's the idiot now? 5 months before the election, Joe Biden sees the writing on the wall and his lower than snail slime poll numbers and realizes he has no damn choice in the matter. But what he has done besides nothing for the past 3 years, claimed there was no border crisis, removed all of Trump's border policies, and then lied to the American people by stating many times over the past 3 years, I've done all I can do to fix the border. And then today, he signed an executive action using the same authority that he denied having. If that wasn't bad enough, any of you watched it, he then blamed Trump and Republicans for the border crisis. If he was actually concerned about our wide open borders that he is responsible for, he would have acted a long, long time ago. It's way too late, Joe. Your only chance now of being reelected is if that corrupt judge in Trump's New York case that handed down guilty of 34 felony convictions puts Trump in jail on July 11th when they all meet again for sentencing. Trump is faced with either no jail time and probation only, house arrest, or 1 to 20 years in prison. Trump goes to prison or Trump gets reelected for a second term. And that is facts. Everything the Democrats have attempted to do to steal this election this time has come back and bit them in the ass. Donald Trump raised more money in a shorter period of time after being convicted of these felonies than any president in the history of America. It's almost up to $200 million, counting May and now into June. That's unbelievable. I want to share with you a message from Donald Trump today. He said, Biden's Soviet tactics don't scare me. I'll go to jail again and again if that's what it took to save America. Because this fight has always been bigger than me. It's about restoring power where it belongs, to you, the people, and ending the tyrannical Biden regime reign of terror once and for all. It's no secret why the Marxists and fascists in power are so desperate to purge our American first movement from existence. They know that I'm this nation's last line of defense against the total destruction. And they'll do anything, even burn our entire country to the ground, just to keep me out of office. But mark my words, I will not be intimidated, bullied, or jailed into silence. As long as you're by my side, I will never surrender. Donald J. Trump. Now, I've told you in the past about this judge that oversaw this trial in New York. That is the last ditch effort that the Democrats have to save Joe Biden. He can put Trump in jail, literally for 20 years. That's his option. And I told you how he was corrupt. I told you how his daughter worked on Kamala Harris's campaign and went over and worked on Joe Biden's campaign, his daughter. And I also told you about all the money that this judge has donated to Kamala Harris's campaign as vice president, Joe Biden, the DNC, and many other Democrats running for office in New York. That by itself should have made him recuse himself, but he didn't. This is from the American Bar Association. Rule 4.1, political and campaign activities of judges and judicial candidates in general, except as permitted by law, a judge or judicial candidate shall not act as a leader in or hold an office in a political organization, make speeches on behalf of a political organization, publicly endorse or oppose a candidate for any public office, solicit funds for, pay an assessment to, or make a contribution to a political organization or a candidate for public office. Now, that being said, I, like many, have spoken up and said, why has the bar not disciplined this judge? How is it possible that he donated all this money to the Democrats, was able to oversee this trial, knowing good and well he's biased? And we saw throughout the trial, well, at least we read the transcripts and we heard the people that were in there talk about it. I read all the transcripts, and I can tell you from day one all the way to the last day they were in court, this judge did everything possible to just make shit up against Donald Trump. He stopped the defense from bringing expert witnesses to testify. He told Stormy Daniels she was not allowed to talk about sexual type stuff. And then she takes the stand and does just that. And the judge says nothing, lets it play out. And when it was over with, then looks at the jury and says, you have to forget you heard all that. He did that to embarrass Trump's wife and Trump and his family. There were so many things that this judge did that are unethical. And he should have never been allowed to be on this case. I told you that Trump did not stand a snowball's chance in hell in New York City. Couldn't do it. That trial had to be moved out of New York, and this judge wouldn't allow it. So, why is the Bar Association not come down on this guy and taken away his law license and stripped him of his judgeship? Well, drum roll, please. New York City passed a law that says we're okay with our judges donating to political causes. That's right. Fuck what the bar says. Because it does say, the bar does say, exempt as permitted by law. And by law, the state of New York says it's all right to donate. President Biden's announcement of a new asylum bar for migrants coming across the southern border when encounters hit a certain level was met with immediate criticism from both Democrats and Republicans today, with Republicans calling it a stunt and some Democrats accusing him of betraying migrants. Biden signed a proclamation that will temporarily suspend the entry of non-citizens across the southern border. But wait, once the number of average border encounters exceed 2,500 a day over a 7-day period. That's right. I didn't misspeak. He's putting stipulations on it. They will stay in effect until 14 days after there has been a 7-day average of less than 1,500 encounters along the border. Officials said it would make it easier for immigration officials to quickly remove individuals who do not have a legal basis to remain in the U.S. The order includes a number of exceptions for those coming across the border. It will not apply to visa holders, unaccompanied children, victims of a severe form of trafficking, as well as those who face an acute medical emergency or an immediate threat to life or safety. Now, let me stop there for a second and tell you that if they see children unaccompanied, yes, bring the children in and save them. If they see somebody dying, yes, give them medical aid and save them. If they find out that somebody's being sex trafficked, yes, save them. Republicans don't have a problem with that. It also does not apply to those seeking entry to the U.S. via ports of entry using the CBP One app, of which around 1,500 migrants are allowed in each day. Today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border, Biden said in his speech this afternoon, accusing Republicans of refusing to secure the border. Now, let me stop for a second. What I think happened here is somebody slipped him some blotter acid and he's tripping. How in the fuck can this man stare into a camera and lie his ass off and blame this mess that he created on that southern border on Republicans? But, of course, it drew sharp backlash from both Republicans and from some Democrats, but for different reasons. House Speaker Mike Johnson, with Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and House Republican Chair Elisa Stenkland said that the order was a desperate political stunt to try to stabilize his plummeting poll numbers ahead of the November election. From his first day in office, Biden has worked to implement a failed open border agenda, which created this historic humanitarian and national security catastrophe. He has turned every American community into a border community and opened our country to violent criminals, terrorists, cartel members, and poisonous drugs. This executive action does not do anything to end parolee abuse or catch and release. It continues the administration's abuse of the CBP One app. It does not re-implement President Trump's successful Remain in Mexico policy. It proves no new resources for Border Patrol. It does not do anything to deport the millions who have poured across our open borders every day since Biden took office. And it will still allow scores of additional illegal immigrants to flood into our country before any so-called shutdown authorities kick in. President Biden has effectively legalized crisis levels of illegal immigrants well beyond those laid out by the Department of Homeland Security he once served with, House Homeland Security Committee Chair Mark Green said. And this number doesn't count for the nearly 70,000 monthly encounters through Biden and Morocco's unlawful CBP-1 app, CHNV, and other mass parole programs. Stephen Miller, who served as senior White House official during the Trump administration, was scathing with his assessment of the order, calling it a pro-invasion, pre-illegal migration executive order. He highlighted that Biden administration is currently allowing thousands of migrants a week via ports of entry on the CBP-1 app, and said that just because a migrant is unable to claim asylum at the border does not mean they won't be released into the interior of the country. They're still released on a notice to appear, which 90% never do. They still give you a court date. They will still release you on the basis of capacity concerns. Mexico won't take them. Other countries won't take them. They have no detention space, no detention plans here in America. Border Patrol is going to keep on releasing everybody, and everybody they don't release is going to go to a port of entry. And they're going to get released into the country with parole to live in our communities. The order also picked up criticism from Democrats in both chambers. Representative Pramila Jayapal, who is the ranking member of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration, said the move was a dangerous step in wrong direction and noted that the underlying authority, 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, had been deployed by the Trump administration. This attempt to shut down the border to asylum seekers uses the same section of U.S. immigration laws that convicted felon Donald Trump used to implement the Muslim ban in an attempt to cut off all access to asylum, she said in a statement. Talk about doing some bladder acid and mushrooms. Are you kidding me? Well, there are some differences from Trump's actions. The reality is that this utilizes the same failed enforcement-only approach. Penalties, asylum seekers, and further a false narrative that these actions will fix the border. Democrats on the House Homeland Security Committee were also not impressed by the order. President Biden has acted in face of congressional Republicans cynically declining to block partisan border security legislation, ranking member Benny Thompson said. That being said, I'm concerned about the impact of the executive order on vulnerable people coming to the United States for safety and protection. We must ensure continued access to asylum under U.S. law in the Senate, or under U.S. law. In the Senate, Senator Alexa Pandela, Democrat, California, accused Biden of having undermined American values and abandoned our nation's obligation to provide people fleeing persecution, violence, and authoritarianism within opportunity to seek refuge in the U.S. This asylum ban will fail to address the challenges at our border, just as it did under the Trump administration. It will lead to people with legitimate asylum claims being prevented from seeking safety and return to harm. Republicans there were no less critical of the order. By my count, he's issued 94 executive orders since he's been president of the United States. But he's waited until today to actually do what he calls effective action on the border, Senator John Conway, Republican, Texas, said in the press conference. And my question to him is, why did you wait until now if you were serious about doing it? The simple answer is he's not serious about securing our border, and he never was. HBO host Bill Maher, you all know who he is, right? Predicted President Biden would lose the presidential election to Donald Trump on this week's episode of the Club Random podcast. The talk show host was debating the November election outcome with his liberal guest, journalist Kara Swisher. Maher confessed he would vote for Biden's head in a jar of blue liquid over Trump. But he was still concerned Biden would lose to Trump. And Maher said, he's going to fucking lose, quote. Swisher disagreed and asked him if he would like to place a bet on the election outcome. Maher conceded that he could be persuaded in another direction if presented with a good argument in support of the potential Biden victory. And I've already told you what that is. They have to put him in jail on July 11th. Swisher estimated there was a silent minority, and listen to this real close, okay? This is his liberals thinking. And then, as I'm reading this, I want you to think about the women who came out in droves and voted for Trump after the liberals and Democrats said no woman will vote for him, after that Access Hollywood tape was released where he was using locker room talk, talking to some guys, saying some shit he shouldn't have said. It was recorded about grabbing women by the private parts. And they voted for him in droves. Swisher estimated there was a silent majority of voters, particularly female voters, who would never vote for Trump and would back Biden in November as the less problematic candidate. Maher said the prediction was an absolute possibility scenario, but he couldn't place bets either way. However, he argued there's an equal likelihood that the shy Trump voter gives the former president an edge over Biden. The shy Trump voter is the one who's going to vote for Trump, but doesn't want you to know it because it's a little declassing. He said predicting this trend would be seen on election day, even in blue cities. Remember all the things that the left and the Democrats told us were going to happen to our country if you elected Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton? All the things that were going to happen. He's going to be like Hitler. He's going to be like Saddam Hussein. He's going to be a dictator. He's going to get us in World War III and a nuclear war with Russia. He's going to get us in a war with Iran, with North Korea. They painted this bleak picture of hell, and it didn't work then. Well, they're now going to try and paint the same picture once again, as if they hadn't already said this, because there's a new bunch of voters that are just turned of age, that are young, and some of them are liberals and Democrats, and they're going to hear it for the first time and think, oh, wow, look what Trump will do. Not knowing that they already said all this shit and it didn't happen. And it's not true. An MSNBC presidential historian, and I'd love to know how you get that title, warned on Saturday if former President Trump were to win back the White House, that the United States would devolve into dictatorship and anarchy. He is saying, I will dismantle our rule of law. Did you hear Donald Trump say that? Which is the glory of America, keeps the peace, assures fairness when it works for all Americans. You've got dictatorship and anarchy at the same time. Historian Michael Bishkelos said on MSNBC's The Saturday Show with Jonathan Capehart. The choice is actually pretty clear. We've got a convicted felon, he said. He then went on to reference Trump's public statement after the trial, citing that the former president said the system is rotten and that he wants to dismantle parts of the Constitution. Now, liberals and Democrats, please send me a link where Donald Trump is talking about dismantling parts of the Constitution. Why, MSNBC, would you allow this far left idiot to say shit like that? That wasn't bad enough. Maxine Waters claimed former President Trump was instigating violence in the U.S. and suggested that his supporters, conservatives and Republicans, that's all of you, okay? You're conservative and Republican, that's who she's referring to here. So let me start over, now that you know who she's referring to. Maxine Waters claimed former President Trump was instigating violence in the U.S. and suggesting that his supporters were domestic terrorists who should be investigated for possibly preparing for a civil war. That's a sitting member of the United States Congress calling you and me domestic terrorists and that we're preparing for a civil war. She said, I'm worried that he's so divisive and that he's talking about retribution and they're talking about revenge, and I think that's dangerous. He's even mentioned civil war at one point. Talked about there would be bloodshed, Waters said on MSNBC Sunday, referring to Trump's rhetoric. During the media appearance, the Congresswoman vowed that she would ask the criminal justice system to find out what is going on with the domestic terrorist, seeming to refer to every Republican nominee that supports Trump. Are you preparing a civil war against us? She continued. Should we be concerned about our safety? What is Trump doing with this divisive language? It is dangerous. This is not good for the country, Waters added, but he does not care about democracy. He does not care about the Constitution of the United States. He's in love with Putin and Russia and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. You couldn't make this shit up if you were trying. It's not just that Trump is a criminal. This is a man who disrespects the Constitution and democracy. And we have got to find out what they are going to do, these domestic terrorists who are trying to take over our government like they did on January 6th, she continued. How far is this going to go? Waters asked. Are they going to be attacking us? Whom are they going to attack? What are we going to do? We're trying to get an investigation going about that. Waters also referenced social media posts she made attacking Trump after his historic conviction in New York. Trump, shut your mouth, Waters wrote on X last Thursday. You talk about saving the Constitution. You're the one who has disrespected the Constitution, and you have supporters who believe we should get rid of the Constitution. Shut your mouth. You're convicted on all counts. Is anything I've read to you that she said, even there's not enough whiskey to drink to make you even consider that she's in a right frame of mind. Waters previously claimed in May that right-wing organizations connected to Trump are training to attack if Biden wins the election in November. We're training. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the Justice Department, and I am going to ask the president to tell us what they're going to do to protect this country against violence if Biden loses, she remarked. Jeez. I want to know about all of those right-wing organizations that Trump is connected with who are training up in the hills somewhere and targeting what communities are going to attack. We need to know now, given that he is telling us there's going to be violence if he loses. We need to know what his plan is and how we're going to be protected, Waters said. Waters has also been accused of a violent rhetoric, as you may remember, having caused controversy back in 2021 after telling protesters to get more confrontational if ex-Minneapolis police Derek Chauvin was acquitted in the death of George Floyd. And she also told her supporters that if you're out in public and you see anyone from the Trump administration or any of Trump's supporters, if you're in a restaurant, if you're at a gas station, if you're at a mom and pop store, you get in their face and you tell them they're not welcome. Is that not inciting violence? Now, what is all this doing to the Democrats out there? How's this affecting them? I used to be a Democrat many, many years. I didn't become a Republican until I was in the United States military and realized that the Democrats sure as hell didn't have our back in the military. They were cutting our budget every time we turned around. We didn't have enough money to do shit. We had to have our wives and girlfriends have bake sales so we could buy fucking beans and bullets. It was absolutely insane in the 80s and early 90s. And when Republicans would come along, we had all the money we needed to everything we needed. Democrats came along, the first thing they did was they cut the military budget. And of course, then as years went on and the more I look back on the Democrat Party that I was once a proud member of, I realized finally that they're the racist bigots. They're the ones that were against freeing African Americans. They're the ones that wanted segregation. They're the ones that started Planned Parenthood to eliminate African American babies. They're the ones that founded the KKK. And of course, the liberals and the Democrats will say, oh, that all changed. And they will point to different things that took place in history where it just reversed, and now it's the Republicans that are racist and the Democrats aren't. Bullshit. Bullshit. I'm telling you, not all Democrats, don't get me wrong here. I've still got some Democrats that are family members, and I've got Democrat friends that don't think this way. But those Democrats in Congress, in the House, and the Senate are racist bigots, to include the President of the United States. And that's just fact. You can go back and you can look through history of all the speeches they've ever given when it talks about race stuff. It's right here on the internet. You can see it on Rumble. You can see it on YouTube. It's there for you to see and listen to the things they've said. So I left that party. But I now know, because I've got Democrat friends and Democrat family members, they're coming forward and going, okay, Doug, I admit it. You're right. Biden's taking us down the wrong path. Fuck it, I'll vote for Trump. They don't want to, because they've been slightly brainwashed to believe this crap that's being fed from the Democrat machine. But they see the light now. A group of what's been described as never Trump, or those with Trump derangement syndrome, voters are suddenly backing the former president following last week's historic conviction. The Free Press spoke with several voters from across the country whose options were significantly impacted by the guilty verdict in the New York trial against Trump. Sean McGuire, an LA-based venture capitalist and a former Hillary Clinton campaign donor, declared on social media that he donated $300,000 to the Trump campaign within an hour of the verdict, and wrote in an essay that the double standards and lawfare that Trump has faced boiled my blood, he told the Free Press. We were told that Donald Trump would be the end of democracy, but it turns out that lawfare tactics have been escalated by the Democrats and not the Republicans all along. And so, it's from that backdrop that I believe the Republican Party is less of a danger to democracy than the Democrat Party right now. Then the University of Chicago Law School lecturer and Democrat Adam Martra donated $3,300 to Trump campaign after not voting in 2020 and opposing Trump in 2016, hoping now that a Trump victory would have a deterrent effect on the weaponization of our legal system against political foes. New Jersey marketing consultant Kate Nitti was described as a lifelong Democrat who began turning against her party when living in New York City following the COVID lockdowns, voting Republican for the first time in 2021 mayor's race, followed by support for GOP hopeful Lee Zeldin in the 2022 governor's race, while previously supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy. The recent conviction may lead to her pulling the lever for Trump. I'm no fan of Trump. That said, I have a huge problem with contorting the law or using prosecutorial authority in the name of saving democracy, which has been the Democrats' message for the past 4 years, she said. And then she ended with saying, I still consider myself, though, a liberal. I just don't think Biden Democrats reflect what that means, or what it used to mean. Jack McGuire, a Texas-based travel consultant who voted for Clinton in 2016 election and supported neither Trump nor Biden in 2020, says that this trial of Trump galvanized him. What happened is every level of corruption and deceit and a willingness to use whatever means necessary to stay in power. It just absolutely galvanized me to say enough is enough and leave the Democrat Party. I'm all in with MAGA people now because this has got to end, he told the Free Press. California-based guitar instructor and recording engineer Emery Barter was another lifelong Democrat who canvassed for Clinton in 2016 and voted for Biden in 2020. But hyper-progressive politics implemented in his hometown of Oakland has made him second-guess his support for Democrats and question the media's coverage of the political landscape. Welcome aboard. We've been saying it all along. Fake news. I used to trust the media, but now I feel the media has drifted away from reporting the truth. I just feel everything is completely made up. Barter went on to say that Trump doesn't scare him and the narrative is just worn out by claiming that Trump is a bad guy and you should be scared of him. The idea that this is a threat to democracy is so great that we must sacrifice democracy to stop this threat. It's an all-consuming idea that can't be rewarded, he said, adding, if you don't pay attention and you just check the bluest box, you end up voting for people that aren't actually interested in carrying out their core functions anymore. Daniel Coulson, the husband of former Levi Stratus executive Jennifer Sy. These are Levi Stratus genes, folks, okay? Got millions. Had voted for Obama twice and Clinton in 2016. He previously considered voting for Trump in 2020 as a critic of the COVID lockdowns, but ultimately backed the Libertarian Party candidate due to then president's vaccine push. But now he thinks Trump is the better option. The persecution of Trump is what decided for me because it made me think that perhaps he is different. He is going to put some dirt in the gears. They hate him too much. It's really literally it's because they're pursuing him so aggressively and relentlessly that I want to support him now. And I can't be the only one. No, you're not. It's too much, he told the Free Press. I don't want a Democrat right now. I don't want to be ruled by experts. I don't want better experts. I want no experts. Trump is just going to try and break stuff and not listen to anything that anybody tells him to do. And I don't think that's necessarily a long-term solution, but that's just what we need right now, he added. Maine state senator and self-identified Ron Paul Republican Eric Barkley backed the Libertarian candidate in the past two election cycles, but after flirting with JFK Jr., he decided to back Trump, supporting the principles that the people get to choose our president, and donated to his campaign after the conviction. Democrats don't preserve democracy, he said. They're afraid that the people, when presented a democratic choice, will not vote for them. Democracy is when the people decide, not the other way around. Now let's talk about this cup of coffee for a moment. Oh, I so love community coffee. I drink, no, this isn't a commercial for community coffee. I drink on average 8 to 10 cups of coffee a day. It's an addiction, folks. It is an addiction. Some days they'll only drink 3 or 4, but typically it's 10, sometimes even more. And by the time I do this show, this is literally like my 7th cup of coffee of the day. I got several more to go before the night's over with, but not tonight. Tonight, I have to stop when I'm done with this cup of coffee because tomorrow morning I have a heart stress test. Yep. Been having some issues with this ticker here, and they've been running a whole bunch of tests that I really haven't talked too much about with you guys and girls. Things are going pretty good right now. We've done a lot of ultrasounds, we've done x-rays, we've done just EKGs, bunch of shit. But tomorrow is the stress test, and you can't have coffee 12 hours prior. So I'm savoring every bit of this cup of coffee. And what better way to do it than with an American flag on it and the Pledge of Allegiance? My friends, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to this channel. Tell your family and friends about this channel. In the description of this show and all my shows, all my videos, you can see the different locations that you can follow me on social media. Go follow me there. I do the same for you. That's how we do this. We spread the conservative, real news and dive in and tell you what is actually happening. And it's not politically correct, because I believe that political correctness is part of what has ruined this country. So I will never be politically correct. I will never bow to the far left and their unbelievable warped ideology of craziness. If you're hurt feelings over something I say or other conservatives or Republican podcasters say, don't watch our channel, for crying out loud. If you don't watch me, I don't exist. But if you do, don't complain if I say a bad word or two. And for those that say, oh, how can he be a Christian when he says bad words? That's between me and my God. And I assure you that there is no man on God's earth that is not a sinner. No one is perfect. Not living human beings. We all have issues and problems. I will continue, God willing, to put out the information that is needed for American patriots to understand what is happening across this country. Slowly but surely, believe it or not, we're getting some on the left, liberals and Democrats, that I'm hearing from, and messages saying, I get it. I started watching you. I hated you. I hated you so much that I couldn't not watch you and listen to what you were saying, because I thought it was such bullshit and you were crazy. And it took me a year or two to realize that you were 100% spot on, Doug. And now I support you. And that's what it's all about. Continuing to press the message. Continuing to put it out there. And if anyone thinks for one moment that what I'm putting out is not correct, I challenge you to please let me know. And for those of you who support this channel, have been following me for a long time, you already know what will happen. I'll be the first one to come out and say, I got it wrong. I screwed up. Because that's what real men do. That's what Republicans and conservatives do. Not only do we follow the laws of the land, but we're also big enough to admit when we make mistakes. And from time to time, I've relied on other people to give me information that I trusted because of who it was coming from. And it turned out that it was not quite what it should have been. And I've come back and made the correction. Been doing this for a long time. And I can count on one hand the times I've had to go and correct it, because today I do my own vetting. I don't have other people doing it for me anymore. Before this show, in between the show, my wife can testify to this. I'm knee deep in politics and watching what's happening. I'm watching Fox News. I'm watching MSNBC. I'm watching CNN. I'm reading the Washington Post, the New York Times. I'm listening to the left spin, the Democrat spin, and the Republican spin, because yes, they also spin some shit too. And then I decide through all that, I decipher with my education and my background and my real world experiences what's fact and what's bullshit. And then I do this show and I share it with you, the American patriots of this country, and anybody from the left or the Democrats that care to come on board and listen and learn something. Folks, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. I'll be back on Thursday night for another show, and then I am off to Oklahoma, where I will be the guest speaker at the Oklahoma 2A Association annual meeting. And then we come back from that. I'll be doing a show for just, I think, Tuesday, and then Wednesday we're off to Detroit, Detroit, Michigan, for the People's Convention, where I'll be there through the whole convention, reporting live, coming to you guys, as well as I will have a media station set up there where I'll be giving out free stuff for anybody that comes along and wants to say hello. I've got a bunch of cool little stuff that has the Douglas Ducote Show written on it. And so if you're there, please stop by. I'd love to shake your hand. Anybody that supports this channel and supports this movement of conservative values and trying to do the right thing for this country, come by and say hello if you're up there at the People's Convention. And I'll be doing more about that and talking about that more before the convention happens. Anyhow, join me back here on Thursday, and we will dive deep into that. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families in our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. Wish me luck on my stress test tomorrow for my heart. If you believe in the power of prayer, thank you. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you on Thursday.